It is finally time to start the series, the Texas Rangers franchise here on MLB The Show 20. For those of you who do not know what my franchise series on MLB The Show are usually like, this is not what you're used to seeing on YouTube. If you've just stumbled upon my videos, this is not the usual franchise, I'm doing extreme air quotes right now, series that you see on YouTube in the past, 3-4 years that have gotten pretty popular is Rebuilding the Texas Rangers! 60-minute long video of just trading for, some superstar like Mike Trout in the first episode, and then the whole series is one episode, because you just sim the whole season, win the World Series in one video, and it's rebuild the Texas Rangers, all while I just pretend to know, I know about baseball. I haven't not watched baseball in 6 years. That's not what this is. I try to be a fun mix of realistic and fun. I used to spend a ton of time running through possible moves to make sure they're realistic enough, but I still do that a bit, but I'm not going to be as hell-bent over making sure the trade of a C potential reliever would please every single person as being realistic enough. And last year I started a new format for how I run the series, how I format the episodes. So essentially, the main episodes are 2 to 3 games that I play and cut down into highlights with some updates mixed in throughout the episode, like stats and all that type of stuff. There's prospect profiles. Those are still just reserved for the top prospects, though, because there's also going to be a minor league update, usually 1 to 2 per season, where I play a game with the AAA and AA teams, and then just go over how they're doing in the season, certain guys who I'm looking at to hopefully make it to the big league club, my thoughts on other prospects who aren't going to get prospect profiles. Now, last year when I did these minor league updates, I felt like 2 per season got pretty tedious towards the later seasons of the series. So once I got to season 3, 4, and 5, it felt like doing 2 per season was kind of unnecessary, so I might monitor to see how I'm going to do that this year. But the minor league updates are definitely still going to be a thing. It's also worth noting that I am using 30-team control, which essentially means that every single team is controlled by the user, but in my case, they're not, because I have 2 settings options. One, you can see it says Jersey next to the Rangers, and then the other, it says very well CPU. So one of them, mode-specific options, is all on manual, the other one is all on auto. So the CPU teams are still ran by the CPU. This just allows me to look at the pending transactions, and if there's a really stupid trade, which there's guaranteed to be 15 per season, I can make sure that, the Blue Jays aren't constantly blowing up their team like they were in last year's series. So now moving on, we're going to take a quick look at the state of the big league roster. There's going to be no games in today's episode. This is just going to be an introduction episode to the series. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to get out a regular episode. If not tomorrow, then it will definitely be the next day. And for those of you who are watching this episode months after I post it, none of this information matters to you. So if you take a look at the bats on the team, you take a look at these lineup screens, this is just a rough draft sort of what I'm thinking I might roll with as my lineups against right-handed pitching and left-handed pitching as you're seeing them scroll by. I'm not sure if this is what I'm going to roll with at the gates. Usually I tend to look at what a actual MLB team is doing with their lineups when I start the series, and then I kind of do my own thing from there, but obviously we're in an extremely weird time where I can't do that, so I'm just having to, right from the get-go, be like, alright, this is what I want to do, and that's how I'm rolling with things. But some quick thoughts on some of the players. We have Sin-Soo Choo, who is leadoff guy on both righty and lefty lineups. He's for sure the leadoff guy because he gets on base a ton. I do not like his hitting ratings against lefties, so I would kind of prefer to have somebody leading off who isn't him against lefties, but I don't really have another option to do that, so he's a DH both ways and leadoff. Joey Gallo is always going to be somewhere within 2, 3, 4 in the lineup. I'm also thinking about playing him in center field, since every other outfielder we have really can't field that well. Nick Solak, who currently, as you saw in the lineups, is a bench player, He was getting time in center field during spring training in real life, so he could be an option there. That would also be good for his development to get more ABs and possibly maybe be a center fielder of the future for us, but that is something that we will have to decide as we go on. And if I decide to roll with Solak in center while keeping Gallo in right, that means that Santana is probably sent down to first base, because I'm not really sold on Ronald Guzman at first base. Despite him being a B potential, he's really not the greatest bat, and he can't hit it all against lefty, I think it is. Yeah, he can't hit it all against left-handed pitching. And we also have a few minors in the options at first base as well, which we will get on later on in the series. We will talk about that more. And we can't put Santana in left field because, despite him having a good arm, Calhoun really is only an option as a DH or in left field, and then Sin-Soo Choo is also not good in the field, so Calhoun is just kind of out there in left field because I don't really have another spot for him, because I'm not going to put him at second base because I prefer somebody who can field at second base, and also we have Rougned Odor, who is the next guy I want to talk about. I hate everything, or mostly everything, about Rougned Odor as a player, I should say. And no, this is not a anti-bat flip thing. If you've watched these series, you know that I'm a very, very pro-bat flip. I wish players would do it more, and I wish they would be more flamboyant with it. I wish, like, they did it to specifically piss off pitchers. No, what I dislike is the fact that he's on a pretty big contract, and he's just insanely mediocre. But he hits a lot of homers, so casual fans look at him and they're like, oh, I like that guy. But he does nothing else offensively. He does not get on base. He always has like a 290 OBP, but he hits like 30 home runs, so people look at the home run number and they're like, oh, that guy must be pretty good. It also helps that he kind of hit a lot of home runs when the Rangers were making those playoff runs, and he was one of their better teams, one of their better players on those teams, mainly because ESPN was just like, this guy has home runs. He also flat out sucks against left-handed pitching, which is also an issue. He is good defensively, though, so he's not totally useless as just a one-thing player. He also has the ability to field. We also have Matt Duffy on the team. He was in Rangers camp as a non-roster invite, and he's one of those classic MLB The Show players that they haven't touched his ratings for years. So he's a classic high-contact, high-vision guy who rakes in every sim despite being flat-out terrible in real life for the past, 3 years. So as a result of that, I'm going to be editing his contact and vision ratings a bit to where I feel like it should be. I'm not 100% happy with where I have it right now because I did edit it a bit, but I am going to toy around with it a little bit and get it to where I want it to be. So now moving on to the pitching side of things, the rotation is pretty straightforward. We have Corey Kluber, Lance Lynn, Mike Minor, and Kyle Gibson as the 1 through 4. That's all quite solid. We have a pretty solid rotation on this team, and then Jordan Lyles is definitely not a shabby fifth starter either. And we've got a few young pitchers coming up in the system as well. That's something that's going to be fun about this team, is that all our current starters aren't guys who are going to be around for an extremely long time, so we can pretty much do whatever we want with our rotation throughout this series. The issue with our pitching is the fact that we have nobody, and I mean nobody, in the bullpen. We have Jose Leclerc, who I guess I shouldn't say nobody because we have him, and he's a pretty decent option, pretty good option actually. He throws hard as hell, his stuff is filthy. He just has absolutely no clue where anything is going to end up, which, despite what the average sunglasses in the car selfie guy on Twitter will tell you, is not that big of a deal in real-life baseball. If you're throwing hard and your stuff is wiped out, you're going to get people out. But for whatever reason, so far in my time with MLB 20, I've just had a very hard time pitching with people who have low control and low walk per 9 ratings. That's never been the case for me in previous years, but this year it just feels like if I don't have a guy with high control, I'm missing every single spot, I'm hanging every curveball. It is just absurd. And then moving on from Leclerc, this is where things really drastically drop. We've got Brett Martin, who is currently the only lefty in the bullpen. That's another interesting, or as I would call it, dumb thing about 2020 baseball, is that loogies don't exist anymore because they have the 3-batter minimum rule. Judging by Martin's ratings, he could be a pretty good reliever for us in the future, but as of right now, he just kind of has a high ceiling. And we're definitely going to need more than one lefty at some point who can be more than just a guy to come in for one batter, because we can't do that anymore. Then there's Shane Carl, who is an okay option out of the pen. He had a pretty good 2018 with Atlanta, not so much in 2019. Nick Goody is a serviceable reliever. He was with Cleveland the past few seasons. The thing about our bullpen arms is that besides Leclerc, we don't have any great options. There's just a few, he's decent guys, and then a whole ton of garbage with zero depth. So we've got Jesse Chavez, who's a veteran, former starter, nothing too special about him. There's former Met Rafael Montero, who was actually pretty good at the bullpen for the Rangers in 2019. His ratings do not reflect that, though. He's actually pretty bad in-game ratings-wise. And then we move on to Luis Garcia, who is the combo of being a veteran and having a deep potential. He does throw hard, though, so that's a plus. DeMarcus Evans is a 23-year-old. He's very interesting because he is a rookie who was already on the 40-man for the Rangers, and I decided to roll with him on the opening day roster because he was taken by the Rangers in the 25th round back in 2015 out of Petal High School in Petal, Mississippi, or Petal. I'm assuming it's Petal High School. He absolutely shoved in 2019. He split it between high A and double A. He struck out 100 batters in 60 innings of work, and he only gave up 23 hits and 6 earned runs. That is an ERA of 0.90. Now on to the depth options on the roster. I'm doing extreme air quotes right now. There are some starters and young guys who I didn't want to highlight here. We will learn more about those as the series progresses, but there is Edison Volquez, who is another veteran arm. He was not good at all in 2019 with the Rangers. They brought him back anyways on a minor league deal, and he was not good in the 5 games he pitched in spring this year either, but he is an option to have, and he's another one of those guys that they just haven't touched his ratings in like 5 years on MLB The Show. Juan Nicasio, he was serviceable in Philly in 2019. The Rangers brought him in on a minor league deal. I'd say it's probably likely he ends up with the big league club at some point in 2020, especially since we need a lot of help in the bullpen. And then we have Cody Allen, who is an interesting piece to have. He's going to start the year in AAA. Used to be a great closer with Cleveland. He had a shaky 2018 where he ended up losing the closer role to Brad Hand. And then he signed a 1-year, $8.5 million deal with the Angels in 2019, was flat out awful, ended up getting DFA'd, and then he signed a minor league deal with the Twins on June 22nd and was gone by July 31st. The Rangers signed him this offseason to a minor league deal, but in-game, fun fact, just surprise, here, have this, he's still on the contract from 2019 that he was DFA'd from, and would have been up by the end of 2019 anyways. And then the only other lefty option we have in the bullpen, down in AAA, is Brian Flynn. He's not very good. Derek Law, another deep potential veteran, had one good year with San Francisco in 2016. He's been not good ever since. Then there's Luke Farrell, who is a sub-60 overall, and he has an awful walk per 9 rating, so he's going to be walking like 47 guys an inning. So that's the rundown on our awful bullpen and what our options are down in the minors to hopefully help out with the bullpen. This Rangers team is going to be interesting because I feel like they could possibly compete for a wild card spot. It's probably just going to come down to if the bullpen can be good enough to get us there. But with that being said, that is going to wrap things up here for this edition of the Texas Rangers franchise. The next episode will probably be opening day at Seattle, and then the home opener versus the Angels, and then maybe one more game. Probably just those 2, though. So with that being said, I've been your host, Jersey Born, and I am saying goodbye.